Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here. I am back with another Starcraft 2 1 versus 1 bot AI cast. And we have got ourselves what should be a good one here today, as it's going to be Sharkbot saying, time to see if my APM is as rusty as I think it is. Going to be taking on the best Protoss bot, the best bot out there. It is negativeZero. I do find it rather funny. Sharkbot talking, saying time to see if my APM is as rusty as I think it is. As Sharkbot is one of the highest APM bots, almost to a fault at times, as it like really spams commands. I don't know what it's spamming them on, but it just does. And yeah, let's see how this one's going to go between these two. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do enjoy these bot matches, make sure to go ahead and click that like button. If we can actually get one like on this one for every APM that Sharkbot has, that would be amazing. And yeah, leave a comment down below saying more bots if you do want to see more of these bot matches, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You guys are the best at like supporting the channel and stuff. And yeah, let's see where this one is going to go. A PvP between these two. negativeZero is a very darn good Protoss bot. It has had some epic matches versus Sharkbot in the past as far as PvP goes. But we shall see how this one's going to develop, because getting up expansions in PvP can be very difficult. We also have notably a much later Cybercore from Sharkbot. I'm not sure what that's about, but negativeZero already has Adepts on the way, whereas Sharkbot does not. So I'm wondering what the deal is with that, as the red Protoss throws up a Robo, as two probes are chasing negativeZero's scouting probe, just spamming the clicks, is Sharkbot. That's how it has such a ridiculously high APM. Yeah, and we do get two Adepts on the way for Sharkbot behind this. Cybercore researching Warp Gate for both of these bots. The Adepts of negativeZero are going to go ahead and cross the map, heading towards its opponent's base. I'm really curious if we're going to get potentially Oracles out of Sharkbot. Meanwhile, a battery does get tossed on up. However, Sharkbot's Adepts do actually get split up in this situation, as one got caught behind that battery wall. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not. It honestly didn't look very intentional. The Adepts for negativeZero are shading up this ramp, 2 versus 1 though, so Sharkbot's Adept does have to be careful taking this engagement. There is potential for the range to make these trade out, and they do. One Adept for one Adept. Meanwhile, Sharkbot's Adept is crossing the map, so not a lot going to get done at the start of this game, as both these bots are just building up already. negativeZero with a bit of a higher army supplies. It did have that quicker production. Still, though, both these bots have one Immortal out now, with a second one on the way for Sharkbot. And yeah, we're just heading into a bit of a turtling one-base PvP between these two bots. That's not too surprising, as if you expand in PvP, you tend to die. And so naturally, Protoss players just like to sit on that one base for a long time. I do like the second Immortal already being out for Sharkbot, although negativeZero also has its second one on the way. negativeZero attempts to block this Adept getting into its main base, but it is unsuccessful, I believe, as the army was there, but the Adept still gets dealt with, as the Protoss has the defensive units for that. Sharkbot, meanwhile, does have a Prism on the way now, so it's going to be looking to potentially juggle the units in its army to get efficiency. That is one of the things these bots are the best at, microing their units in a prism. It's something that the best humans can only do in certain circumstances, whereas bots can do it just all the time. And Sharkbot tends to have quite good prism micro. We also have an observer on the way behind this, but Sharkbot producing that prism and the observer does mean that it will have less actual army units. It's now 2 Immortals versus 3. A third is on the way for Sharkbot. negativeZero, meanwhile, does seem to be moving out for a bit of an attack. It's not just going down the ramp to take a Nexus, as the blue Protoss means trouble here as it heads towards the base of Sharkbot. We'll see if Sharkbot's going to have a high ground defense or whether it will move its army to the low ground. Hopefully the timing works out for Sharkbot in the sense that it doesn't kill its own battery before negativeZero's attack comes in, because in this situation, the Protoss will eventually have to open up its door, Sharkbot that is, and kill its own battery to get its units out. It does see the army now of negativeZero, so these two bots are engaging each other. It's a very nice angle of defense for Sharkbot, as even the best Protoss bot out there does fall victim to the high ground. I suppose that would be something you could, in theory, program into your bot as far as the movement logic goes, would be to have your bot take into account high ground and where there could potentially be enemy units, and not like make it like, oh, I can't ever go by high ground, but potentially have it sort of favored, because there's no reason that negativeZero's army couldn't have gone around there. Sharkbot, though, is just juggling a Stalker for some reason. That Stalker's got to be getting motion sickness. But yeah, a nice defense so far from the red Protoss, killing 5 Stalkers for basically free, even getting another Adept there. And it just goes to show how much map can have an effect on these bot games. Who knows, maybe the reverse will happen if Sharkbot counter pushes in this game. But yeah, it really is kind of just interesting to see how the map can affect bot games like that, as who knows, maybe Sharkbot couldn't have stopped that attack on a different map, as maps definitely do impact this quite a bit. negativeZero does have its Immortals kind of just moving across the middle of the map by themselves. We'll see, is it 1 Immortal for 1? Currently, yes it is, so we'll see if negativeZero can save the rest of its units. Prism does begin juggling the Immortals as Sharkbot does push across the map. It's 44 against 49 army supply, so the red Protoss has a slight supply lead. It's presently 5 Immortals against 2, so Sharkbot has really kept on with the production of those, and that might make things difficult for negativeZero. We are seeing the counter, though, as Sharkbot goes for an attack, just taking the shortest path possible. negativeZero isn't really getting to capitalize on that high ground, though, as much as Sharkbot did, or really at all. Guardian Shield is popped for negativeZero, which is very important in these bigger army fights. Meanwhile, the Prisms are just simultaneously juggling units here. That's the power of bots, as the Immortals are trying to target down some of the Stalkers, it seems, but negativeZero really is outgunned as far as the Immortals go. And Sharkbot still has its Prism alive, so it can just pick these up. And it's doing exactly that. 1 Immortal is about to go down. It does stay alive for now, getting juggled just barely. Sharkbot then asks negativeZero, what is your political affiliation? Sharkbot is just like that chaotic uncle at Thanksgiving dinner. Now, we have got negativeZero constantly trying to engage this army of Sharkbot, but with all these Stalkers that are injured and in the red, it's quite difficult. The red Protoss is now using the Prism and the powerful double Immortal drop to hit the main base of negativeZero. It's important to keep in mind that both these bots are on one base, so the income has really plummeted on both sides of this, as negativeZero is down to 4 mineral patches. Sharkbot is at 5, but it's soon going to be on 4. And that's just the threat of PvP. Neither bot wants to expand in this scenario. Like, would you feel safe throwing up an expansion? Maybe Sharkbot could, but negativeZero probably doesn't feel safe to do that. Sharkbot is actually building up money, so we may get an expansion out of it yet. As it hits that 400 mineral mark, the Nexus does get built. So there we go. Sharkbot is expanding. We'll see if negativeZero can potentially squeeze one of those out itself. Presently, we are 48 versus 51 army supply, but the unit composition is just so good for Sharkbot. 6 Immortals is no joke. negativeZero does move forward, though, and Sharkbot is having a bit of bad pathing here. As it walks into the corner, their maps can really, really affect these bot games, so 5 Immortals are getting caught in the corner. I mean, they are going to take a lot of units with them, but it seems they are going to all die, and negativeZero, I mean, it loses one of its Immortals taking that fight. but it killed off so much of the army of Sharkbot. All of a sudden, it's 3 dead Immortals versus 7, and that's the thing that's so difficult as a bot author. Like, if you just program your unit, your bot, to path, I guess, in short distances, which you do want to do, otherwise, I mean, you can get other bad behavior, but Sharkbot just thought it was safe pathing back, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we have to path further back. So, like, the only way I could possibly think of fixing that would be to have, I guess, overall objectives for your units. To be like, okay, are we going to attack or are we retreating? Maybe if we're retreating, ensure that we're giving more prioritization to pathing in a direction that we can actually say, chart a solid path back to our main base, something like that. That's the only way I could think about it. I don't blame Sharkbot at all for having an issue like that. That is something that would be an absolute nightmare to program. Now, we do have negativeZero getting up its own nexus behind this. Sharkbot's is already done, so the income is going to be quite in favor of the red bot. Now, Sharkbot moved out looking for a bit of an attack. That's a very bold decision, as it's mainly just got Stalkers, 1 Immortal, and 1 Colossus in its army. Yes, you heard that right. Sharkbot did build a Robo-Bay to try and round out its composition. Very bizarre choice on a lower unit count, particularly in a PvP, because, well, Immortals are king in PvP. Sharkbot now has a Twilight Council on the way. negativeZero, though, is just sitting back, as it's tough to say which competitor is doing better here. negativeZero has got 2 Immortals to the 1, but Sharkbot has a Colossus, and now it's got Extended Thermal Lance on the way. A second Colossus being produced is definitely interesting. There is a battery at the natural as well of Sharkbot. I meant to talk about this at the start of the cast, but we do actually have the new patch going live soon for bots. Bots have been behind a patch, but that's getting corrected through using updated maps. And hold that thought, though, as we do have this Colossus getting some big swipes off on its opponent. Once again, the high ground for Sharkbot is going to allow it to have a nice angle as that Colossus just walks down the cliff. Sharkbot is chasing negativeZero home. Yeah, but all I was saying was that this will be one of the last casts on this current patch with battery overcharge, I believe, as I think this weekend we're set to have the preseason begin on the AI Arena, so everyone will have to re-upload their bots to ensure they're competing on the ladder. Now, let's see here, as negativeZero does something that not a lot of bots do, which is prioritize the gold base, which is neat. Unfortunately, Sharkbot has a few units by this Nexus. I mean, who knows? It may actually give negativeZero a few good pickoffs. The Colossus being juggled in the Prism, it's one of the things Sharkbot does best. Although, as I say that, the Colossus is taking some damage. There's 2 Prisms and 2 Colossi here for Sharkbot. This is so cool to see. However, it's fighting with just a fraction of the units of its opponent, so Sharkbot does want to go on home. We notably do have Charge on the way for Sharkbot. Charge is very useful in PvP. There's a Disruptor out as well with a second one on the way. So as far as just unit composition goes, things seem better for Sharkbot. So negativeZero really wants to get this gold base online so it can potentially overcome that in numbers. Sharkbot moving forward with just an Immortal and a Stalker. The decisions these bots make when it comes to taking fights is so interesting. I'm not sure how these Zealots will possibly engage that sort of death ball that negativeZero has going on. The Zealots are just caught, and yeah, they're afraid, and they're just gonna die as they pad back and forth. And that is one of the things. It's like, okay, Zealots are good in conventional PvP, but maybe not so much in bot PvP, because it's difficult to program that in decisiveness, whereas bot engagements tend to be more just constant skirmishes. We do have the Colossus still being juggled in the Prism. I believe there's a Disruptor maybe in one of them as well. There's that disruptor for Sharkbot. One of the Colossus does perish. That's very unfortunate. negativeZero is moving forward with a big push. Come on, is there going to be a big disruptor, Nova? So far, it doesn't look like it. There's the Nova. negativeZero has a beautiful split, though. Sharkbot has the battery overcharge, healing up that Colossus's shields, keeping it alive. That is so important here. Still, those supplies are looking mighty rough for Sharkbot. The bot that invested in all this tech is in a very precarious position. Now, probes are being juggled with the Prism, but that means that the Colossus is not being prioritized and that it will take damage. It's so low on HP. It's been getting phenomenal work done, but then it does go down. Another disruptor from the high ground for Sharkbot comes down. There's actually 2 disruptors out. One of them just move commands and paths out there, it seems. Not that disruptors have an auto attack, but it didn't seem like it had any active pathing going on there. negativeZero cleans out the natural base, and it looks like it will take this game after Sharkbot maybe just overextended a little bit, maybe overinvested in tech. And yeah, really, really well done. What a great PvP between these 2 bots. It definitely was a bot game, but it just goes to show how exciting these matches can be. Little pathing is so difficult on the map like Automaton. We will have new maps, by the way, in the new season, I believe. I'm not sure if they're all switching out or just some of them, but yeah, like all the little pockets really are traps for programmers as far as the pathing of their bots go. Really, really well done by negativeZero. Just, it's great. It's great sort of army grouping is what won at this game. Sharkbot really strung out its army. Going for the little bit of harassment with like the Prism and stuff is cute, but just negativeZero takes its great fights off the back of how well it groups its army. Because, yeah, just it gets incredible efficiency through that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this cast, click that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe if you haven't already, as we put out daily bot videos on this channel. If you do want to support the channel, or actually better yet, just big thanks to everyone that does support the channel via the YouTube membership program. And that is it for this one. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.